Toy Story 2. When this movie came out in the early days of Pixar, the previous two already proved to the public that they can make great and successful movies. But this one stepped in to present that they can also make great sequels. So much so that it stands as one of the most critically acclaimed animated films on Rotten Tomatoes. I know that some can be iffy on the site, but still, a mainstream movie getting 100% is quite an accomplishment. Originally planned to be released straight to video as part of Disney's newfound goldmine of direct-to-video sequels, the movie went through quite an insane production, more so than most other Pixar films. An ever-growing pressure as the film would now be released in theaters, a deadline that always seemed like it was creeping closer that couldn't be pushed back, an incident that made them almost lose the entire movie, and a story so broken that they decided to scrap everything and completely redo the whole movie in just 9 months. So after all that hard work with a feature ready for the world to see, can the toys still go infinity and beyond? Or did this movie leave them as broken as some of the animators when production was finally finished? Let's find out. The story. As the first movie would set the foundation of Toy Story, the sequel helped expand its concept and ideas to create a more vast and richer world that the toys are set in. Now that audiences are used to having toys come to life when no humans are around, this movie would present what it's like to be a toy in a toy store and in the hands of a collector. Like with the first, it makes the theory of the life of a toy feel fresh again, along with massively developing the old characters to show a brand new side of them. But that is only the core of the feature, which is great that it managed to get that done correctly. In terms of the story in this Toy Story, the film would juggle with two plots happening at the same time. One is where Woody got stolen by this collector and would then learn about the franchise he came from, and the other features Buzz and some of the other toys who set out to rescue Woody. These two seem different at first in tone, where one focuses more on the franchise concept and delivering the heart, while the other is more action-packed that emphasizes the animation and bringing out the humor. However, the beauty of the writing here is how these two plots blend very well, and how they would collaborate where one would need the other in order to tell this one cohesive story, thus having audiences get engaged with what's happening and to see what would be the outcome when both plots collide, on top of resulting in a climax that gets more intense and exciting as the film gets closer to the end. On top of that, not only does it function well as a feature on its own, but it also highly succeeds as a sequel, where it would incorporate some subtle nods to the original. However, they wouldn't just play as throwbacks or references for the sake of a joke, they would also have a role in advancing the plot to present how the characters grew because of these past events.
Without me, they'll go back into storage, maybe forever.
Woody, you're not a collector's item. You're a child's plaything. You are a toy!
The story accomplished exactly what it aimed for as a follow-up, to take the ideas from before and grow them to make them feel fresh and exciting all over again. The animation. I'll start this off by discussing about the elephant in the room that might make some people uncomfortable. Okay, not that uncomfortable, I mean about how the animation is old. Considering how this was released back in 1999, it doesn't hide that the visuals are rather dated compared to today's standards, resulting in some human characters looking weird and the textures seem mostly off. While it is true that it could no longer be known as the most technologically advanced animated feature, there is one thing that the first and this benefits very well to even have the animation feel timeless. As this is a movie that centers around toys, it can get away with many of the limitations of its time to have most of the characters look like what they are supposed to be. Do the lighting and the textures make it look like they're made out of plastic? Good, because almost everyone is made out of plastic anyways. However, regardless of what Pixar had back then, it doesn't change how the animators managed to deliver exactly how this movie should be viewed. One element that it accomplished the most is the perspective of a toy, where the backgrounds are built in ordinary places like a suburban home, a toy store, or in a room of an apartment, but they are made in a way where they all seem massive and what anyone can easily pick up can be a huge obstacle for the toys.
Get this out of here, Geekasaur. Look out! Stop!
As it is the second time that the animators would play around with these characters, it is noticeable how their goal was to outdo themselves from what they previously did before, and really emphasize the physical acting of Woody and Buzz, along with broadening the creativity of the other toys to make the most out of their abilities and limitations. This would also explain why there are more action scenes than before, where the characters would put themselves in crazy situations that help with the engagement. If there would be one small criticism with its visuals, it would be while it did level up the character animation, I can't say the same for the designs. Not to say that they're bad, but there isn't a lot of new looks with the toys. The most that it delivered is Zurg, Wheezy, the Barbies, the Roundup Gang, and Al himself, whose caricatured style still looks good today for a movie as old as this. While its age may be prominent compared to today's animated films, it doesn't change how the animation here is still a strong achievement. The characters. Debatably, the central toy of the first film was Buzz Lightyear, as he was the latest and most popular thing when he first hit shelves and was one of Andy's birthday presents. However, in the sequel, this one is all about Woody, as it would explore how he became a toy through a franchise that was a former national phenomenon. In a way, there is a bit of a theme when it comes to how this movie would present its characters, both old and new, and that is how their past shaped them to become who they are in the sequel. They would each approach it in a unique way to present how one would confront their past. Going back to Woody, he would learn that he originated from a show called Woody's Roundup, where not only he was the star, but also had a large collection of merchandise dedicated to him, along with other toys that were a part of the show. This would put Woody in a conflicting scenario where he would have to choose to either return to Andy and be the loving toy of one kid, or leave to Japan where he would be a part of a museum and be adored as a star. As for Buzz, he would start out as the dedicated best friend who would go to save him at all costs, but would later meet another Buzz Lightyear toy that believes that he is the real Buzz Lightyear, resulting in the original Buzz to encounter his old self that behaved just like he did in the first film.
You're breaking ranks, Ranger. Buzz Lightyear to Star Command. I've got an AWOL Space Ranger.
Tell me I wasn't this deluded.
No backtalk. I have a laser, and I will use it. You mean the laser that's a light bulb?
While all of Andy's other toys return for the sequel, it would mostly be Mr. Potato Head, Rex, Ham, and Slinky Dog that join in Buzz's rescue mission to not only supply the movie's humor, but to also lend a helping hand, as obviously Buzz couldn't do this alone. With the new characters, the Roundup Gang are probably the main latest feature of this Toy Story installment, as they each have their own unique personalities and backstories. Bullseye would act more like a loyal dog. Jessie, while eccentric as she can be, suffers trauma from being abandoned by her owner, and Stinky Pete is a mint-condition toy that never left his box. And then there's Al, where he would count as a villain of this feature, where he would have a comically selfish and greedy attitude regarding selling his entire Woody's Roundup collection to a Japanese museum. The characters were highly beloved when the first movie was released, but the second one not only added some new toys to the roster, but it also developed everyone to a whole new level. Toy Story 2 is one of the greatest examples of how a sequel should be. It takes all the ideas and characters from the first film and would expand them to make the experience feel as enjoyable and exciting as it was the first time, with a highly engaging story, very well crafted characters both old and new, and computer animation that can still hold up decades later. For both movie fans and animation fans, this one is an absolute must-watch, and is always a great choice in case you're in the mood for a fun movie to have some laughs and have a good time. This would often be considered as one of the best animated sequels ever, and by watching this, it's understandable as to how it got that title, and it should have no problem to also earn the AniMat's seal of approval. Hey guys, this is AniMat, and I just want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Nick J, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to go and get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he would get to ask me to go and review Toy Story 2. So I just wanted to give him a huge thanks, not just for the support on Patreon, but also just for requesting me such a great movie in general. That's always fun to have. But anyways, going back into the subject of Toy Story 2, in recent years, I have actually seen a lot of debates regarding this movie in particular, or that this movie would actually be involved in a massive debate that people would still be going on about, and that is actually regarding the discussion about which Toy Story sequel is better, Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3? And by the way, on a side note, during the time that I made the review of Toy Story 2 and during the time that I have recorded this, Toy Story 4 has yet to be released. So just to give you guys a little bit of a context that this is during a time that we don't have Toy Story 4 yet, so we only have 2 and 3 to go and discuss about in terms of the Toy Story sequels. But anyways, going back into this, I've seen a lot of people discuss about, oh, which one is better, and some prefer Toy Story 2 and some prefer Toy Story 3. And I would even say, even for myself, I would say that I do lean a little bit more towards like the Toy Story 3 camp. I absolutely adore that movie. It is absolutely phenomenal. But this is not to hinder onto the quality of Toy Story 2. And in a way, I feel like this discussion in general is kind of pointless because regardless of which one do you prefer, Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3, they're both absolutely amazing films in general. And as a result, with Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, it really does lead the Toy Story franchise to become possibly the greatest animated trilogy of all time. And again, this is before Toy Story 4, so we only have the trilogy to go and look at. But very rarely would we ever see a trilogy in general, like not just for animated films, but even for movies in general, where they would be great after great after great movie, where it would actually stay consistently great. And even, especially for animation, it's really difficult to even think about like 3 sets of movies that can be that good one after another. Like, the closest that probably reached to the Toy Story level would be the How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda franchise, but even with those, like, they would probably have one movie or two is kind of like, it's not great, but it is good. But with Toy Story 3, with the Toy Story trilogy in general, they left such a massive legacy and really made possibly one of the biggest impacts in the animation industry with each film that they brought out. And especially when it's extremely rare to find like a follow-up that can be really that good. And especially when the first film already set a massively high standard, like one of the most revolutionary animated features of all time, it really is a massive testament to how great the Toy Story movies are. So regardless if you like the first film, the second film, or the third film, these movies are just absolutely amazing, regardless of which one do you prefer. But anyways, now that we are done with Toy Story 2, it is now time that we shall go and move on to the next Patreon request, which shall be from Matt Shootin. And I'll just start things off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Matt or Nick J, and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including, but not limited, to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to go and review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is go to write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. Alright, so now that we are done with that, let's go ahead and ask the question, what is it that Matt went and asked me to go and review? What did one Matt say to another? Well, very interestingly enough, we are going to be keeping a little bit of a theme of toys, where one movie is all about toys, but then this movie in particular is going to be based on a toy line. Well, more specifically, it's a movie based on a TV show based on a popular toy line. And from there, it's just chaos and action that's just entirely encompassing the whole movie. That, and also, I think it is safe to say that after seeing it, it definitely is one of the most 80s movies that I have ever seen.
Besides, when it all ends, I'll have old Buzz Lightyear to keep me company. For infinity and beyond.